If we were standing here on the Newcastle Geotrail at Nobbys around 255 million years ago, it would have been a pretty exciting place. We would have had huge volcanoes erupting to the northeast, possibly earthquakes happening at the same time, and a big mountain range. At that time, we're also really close to the South Pole, and so a lot of ice and snow would have been present up in the mountains. Well, the volcanoes that were present in this area are a result of the tectonic plates that were present at the time, 255 million years ago, in the Newcastle and New England area. The Pacific plate was sliding underneath the Australian plate, and in that sort of setting, what we generally get are explosive volcanoes. And we know that there was a large area of explosive volcanoes located to the north, up in New England, probably as far as 500 kilometres away. And they generated a very large volume of volcanic ash that covered probably as much as 36,000 square kilometres of northern New South Wales, and was deposited everywhere in this area. And some of the thickest units that we find accumulating in the Newcastle area are at this location called Nobbys on the Newcastle Geotrail, where we can see 20 individual volcanic units that are accumulated there. We know they're volcanic units because if we look at the rocks under the microscope, we can see tiny shards of volcanic glass and also a rock called pumice. The formation of the Newcastle coal measures took place about 255 million years ago. But in the history of the development of the landscape around Newcastle, there's a big jump then to a period of about 90 to 50 million years ago. During that period, there was a different type of tectonic setting in the Newcastle area. Rather than plates colliding together, at that point, the Earth's tectonic plates were moving apart. And that creates tension in the Earth's crust. And that tension forms a lot of cracks in the Earth's crust. And when the plates move apart, the molten rock that's below in the mantle is able to move up through the Earth, through those cracks. And what we find in the Newcastle area is that the cracks in the Earth had intruded molten rocks called basalt come up in the form of dikes. Dikes are sheets of volcanic rock that take advantage of those cracks in the Earth. In the Nobbys area, we can see a split in the tuff rocks that we talked about before that are much older, that formed from the volcanic eruptions. This came as a sheet of molten basalt that split through the volcanic rocks and deposited the Nobbys dike in this area around 80 million years ago. Our local indigenous population here, the Awabakal group, first came into the area probably more than 20,000 years ago and lived over this entire area when sea levels were both high and low. The European settlement of the area began in around about the late 1700s in this area. And of course, that was very closely related to the discovery of coal in the Nobbys area and in the Newcastle area itself. Around about 8,000 years ago, the sea level was rising in this area. So at that time, we would have been able to look out to the ocean here, and the shoreline wouldn't have been present where it is now. It would have been several kilometres further out to sea. But as time went on, from about 10,000 years ago to about 6,000 years ago, the sea level rose in this area, flooded the landscape, and actually Nobbys became an island at that time. When Governor Macquarie took over as the head of government in New South Wales, in about 1818, he came to Newcastle and found that the entrance through to the harbour between Newcastle and the Nobbys Island was a dangerous one, and that he felt that to improve navigation, he would build a causeway between the mainland and the island. And so that causeway was built between about 1818 and 1846. And as a result, sediment transport in this local area is from south to north along the coast. And since about the mid-1800s, a beach has begun to deposit here at Nobbys and grown preferentially from south to north, where we can now see a continuous beach and sand dunes that locate over the position of the former causeway of Governor Macquarie. This opportunity is given to us to see a fabulous location along the coast here at Newcastle, where people spend a lot of their time just walking for recreation. But the Geotrail gives us the opportunity to add a completely different dimension to that by getting them to understand the earth and the landscape that they're walking over at the same time as appreciating the natural beauty.